Hello, dear friends. Here we are for another study of the book Right Path by the Spirit Emmanuel through the mediumship of Francisco Candido Xavier. What a blessing to be with you. And today's chapter is titled by Emmanuel, Portion of Darkness. It's chapter 37. I'm going to put it here on the screen for you. Portion of Darkness. We'll see what he's talking about today, where we are talking about the amount of things we add to the load that we already carry in this lifetime. Emmanuel is going to start this chapter by telling us, quote, in the matter of tribulations, it will be fair to point out the portion of darkness that we commonly add to the load of saving and regenerating trials, which for our own benefit, life has given us to carry. Rebelliousness is always a negative condition, and in manifesting with us in the form of unnecessary restlessness, it is the worst corrosive for the soul, frustrating our resources for achievement and opportunity, service, and time. We refer above all to the suffering created by our own attitudes of non-acceptance before life. Let us reflect on this, pruning the afflictions that crowd around our natural difficulties. Unquote. So what is the amount, the load that you're carrying that is extra? He's saying to us, we will have regenerating trials the life will give us to carry. So we have things we have to go through. We have circumstances we have to overcome. There are opportunities to learn. There will be painful situations, perhaps. Most likely, God will give us the opportunity to learn through loving and caring for one another. So he says, there will be natural difficulties. But he says, the suffering created by our own attitudes of non-acceptance before life. So that's the extra load that we ourselves add when we find ourselves in a situation, in a place, in a condition that causes us to carry more than it's necessary for that lesson to be learned. And then he will continue this message by bringing to us examples of those sufferings that are caused by our non-acceptance of the circumstances of life. He will say, quote, we are reborn on the earth with certain physical or psychological problem, right? If we admit them or this problem as a friendly lesson, it soon turns into a blessing of help instead of persisting with us as a complicating roadblock. Probably in the world we would have received difficult relatives. If we embrace them as companions destined to test us in our patience and tenderness, they will soon be transformed into treasures of feeling, of emotions. We suffer diseases, and if we accept them as life's righteous teachings, they are transformed into educational courses, unquote, for now. So are you reborn on the earth and you're experiencing physical or psychological problems? Some of us are, right? A chronic physical illness, a mental illness. And he's saying we can admit it as a friendly lesson They can turn into a blessing of help instead of being a complicating roadblock. That is to say, dear friend, that we are not condoning being physically or psychologically unwell. Nor we are telling you to go and seek for ways of getting sick. That's not what we're saying. We should not look for those because that might hasten our discarnation and we don't want to be in direct suicides. But if we are experiencing physical, psychological problems, we can change the frame of our view of how they are here to help us in this world. So instead of suffering due to our non acceptance of those conditions, we actually take action and steps that can restore this physical, psychological problem, if possible, within the resources of physical medicine. Next, he will list relatives. Maybe we have received what he's calling here difficult relatives or difficult parents. Perhaps we are the difficult relatives or parents. He says, if we embrace them as companions to test us in patience and tenderness, then they be transformed in treasures of our feelings. So when we find ourselves in a circle of family members that to us seem difficult, or we are being difficult to them, we can see them as a way to practice and honing the skills of patience and tenderness. Because we're always going to ask you in these studies by Emmanuel, if the reverse was true, if the situations were turned, wouldn't you like someone to be patient and tender towards you? Now let's talk about diseases. We have a physical body. We have a beautiful inbuilt system, an immune system that helps us fight diseases. We also have habits that may lead us to have a disease, or lack of habits, lack of hygiene, lack of social distancing, not masking, not vaccinating could translate into catching a disease, not only COVID, but other diseases as well. They are transmitted by close contact, for example. Or the lack of physical exercise, stress, trauma lead us to lead a not as healthy nutritional habits. Maybe we don't have access to good food, nutritious food. Then Emmanuel is saying this: if we suffer diseases, we accept them as life's righteous teachings. They can be transformed into educational courses. If you go to the books of André Luiz, for example, you're going to see the beautiful spiritual aid missions that leave the different spiritual colonies and places and come down to the earth to help us when we are suffering diseases. And then when you are sick, when you are ill, and you can transform that into an educational course, it's a way for us to practice discipline, taking our medicine on time, exercising, having good mental, emotional health, watching out what we consume, watching out. And when I say consume, not only physical nutrition, but also spiritual nutrition. What kind of books are we reading? What kind of content we're consuming are, because those affect the quality of our spiritual companions. And also your mind controls the cells of the paraspiritual body that controls the cells of your physical body, as André Luiz teaches us in the book Evolution in Two Worlds. Then those thought patterns can also lead us to diseases. So diseases are educational courses for us where we can say, okay, how have I been behaving and thinking and doing things that led me to this condition? Easier said than done. Some are more privileged than others in our society, that we have access to certain things that could lead us to be able to even care for our diseases. But even if we can't, if a disease that can't be fixed or cured, and with the physical medicine, we can still be healed of that. And then he will talk a little bit about the obstacles of extreme maturity on the material plane. When we get older, he says, if we accept organic wear and tear without leaving the work that is possible for us in the harvest of the good, the most advanced old age will be a precious period of meditation and spiritual adjustment. I want to bring that to us because in our society, we tend to worship the young. And of course, we should worship the young and teach them these beautiful teachings. But we cannot expect that in a world where we have a physical body, the physical body is going to decay. So although we're going to do things to promote the health of the physical body, eventually the physical body will have the wear and tear. And he's saying this is a precious moment for meditation and spiritual adjustment so that we can start treating the elders with that honor of knowing that they have wisdom, they have a lot to contribute to the world. And then one day, God willing, we'll all become of old age as well. But he's saying even if we have wear and tear, and if we accept the organic wear and tear without leaving the work, so this notion that we're going to retire and sit on a rocking chair and not do anything needs to leave the mindset that we have about old age and retirement. Yes, we work, we contribute, we save so we can enjoy, but the enjoyment has to come with the work that is possible still for us. Because otherwise, idleness doesn't exist in the superior planes. Again, in the books of André Luiz, which go hand in hand with what we're talking here. Because the Spiritist doctrine is complementary. You see the good spirits who lead the missions, the spirits are working in Osalar and the other colonies who are leading, they're always working. Nobody's idling, playing harps in the spiritual realm, and listen, in a sense that is advisable. Rest is one thing, idleness is another. And even when we're resting, we can be of service to others. Imagine if we were to work and contribute in whatever abilities we have and whatever the call of our hearts are. But then at an older age, we can retire and yes, have some enjoyment, but then pair the enjoyment with service instead of just taking and taking. Even when we are young, we can volunteer, take time off, and still there's always a place for service. Wherever you go in the world, if you're traveling, there's always a need. So that we can always pair enjoyment with service. And he will end this chapter by saying, when trials visit us, a precious and natural lesson in the school of life, let's accept what we are and let's serve with all that we have for the benefit of others with serenity and understanding, and we will be free of the weight of despair, which in any suffering is much greater suffering. So, dear friends, my wish for you and I today is that we can accept ourselves where we are today, at this moment, at this step in our reincarnatory development, in our reincarnatory plan, in our spiritual growth. And then we can serve with all that we have, with all the resources that we have, wherever we are. And my hope is that we can weave in the Spiritist teachings in our daily lives. The Spiritist doctrine is beautiful, but we have to feel it. We have to practice it. So weave in those teachings of service with what you have. When you are at work, do your job the best you can. Help those who are in the workplaces. If you have a family and you don't have necessarily a job, that is the most important job, parenthood, as described by the spirits in the Gospel according to Spiritism. That mission is the most precious one of leading the generations into to God. If we are in community, if we are serving, if we are volunteering, if we are even enjoying ourselves, we can always bring these teachings of patience, understanding, accepting people as they are, and helping with all of the resources that you and I have. And that's it for today's message. I hope that you have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, a wonderful week, whichever way you're consuming this content. Make sure you find the playlist, you watch all the chapters, you share with others so that this beautiful content can help many, many more people. It's important that we take and leave the words of the Master. When Master Jesus told Paul to use the powers of the Spirit at his time, that was writing letters. Today, we're sharing things on the internet. So we have to share this and be brave enough to say, yes, I'm a spiritist and I'm practicing it, so that this content can help someone else as well. And take on your own testimony and cross and do what you can to spread the good news of the Christ with your example and with your actions. And until we can be together again for another study of the book Right Path, I hope that you stay well. I hope that you take care of yourself and those around you, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much.